Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.
Have you ever just wanted to take off into the woods for a simpler life? Tacoma author Patrick Hutchison felt that. The difference between him and so many of us who have had those feelings is he did the thing. Patrick bought a $7,500 ramshackle cabin as a young man with little to no knowledge about how to restore it. But the how was kind of unimportant. He documented his experience in his memoir, Cabin, Off-the-Grid Adventures with a Clueless Craftsman, a book that quickly became a bestseller even though he never really expected anyone to read it. I'm Katie Campbell, and you're listening to a bonus episode of Meet Me Here, KUOW's Arts and Culture podcast. The KUOW Book Club read Patrick's memoir in July, and I sat down with him on July 16th in front of a live audience at the Seattle Central Library to talk about just how clueless he once was and everything he learned as he restored his precious cabin. I want you to take us all with you to the cabin the very first time you went. Like, what did you see? What did you smell? What did you hear in this place that you wanted to call your own?
It was terrible. You know, it didn't have siding, there was no deck, the driveway was a swamp. Inside was full of spiders and mouse droppings and clear water damage, although I didn't know it was clear water damage. It's like wood is so many cool shades of dark brown and swirly.
Wow.
But all I could see, I think, is kind of like that reality that I just read about. Like that was the image I think that I had. And I think, you know, as I talk about in the book, it was also at a time in my life that I was just kind of like, needing something else, something maybe kind of weird or unique or kind of independent, something that was kind of mine, I guess. And not just the physical ownership of like having property being mine, but I think also like, oh, this is an experience, like having this thing, having this place to go to and maybe working on it. That's an experience that like no one I know is having or doing. Totally. And so I think that I was sort of desirous of like that as like owning that as a sort of like maybe identity in a way. I'm not really sure. I'm getting a little too therapy on this. But
No, we're going to get so therapeutic later, and we're going to talk exactly about that. But I mean, especially for like the millennial generation, right? Like the idea of property ownership feels really out of pocket
Insane.
At this point, especially when you're just starting out. And so when you see a cabin for $7,500, it can seem really tempting. I couldn't decide if it was a bargain, a robbery, or just a giant red flag. I was just like, that could mean a lot of things.
I mean, I think at the time it was like, yeah, that's the market rate, about $7,500. Like, they've really come up since they were $5,000. I think that's kind of how. I mean, I think the guy that I got it from bought it at auction for like $2,000 or something like that.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
Not to spoil things, but we were talking in the back, and how much did you find out the current occupant
Yeah, the
bought this
last
for?
time it sold was for $100,000.
Uh-huh. And folks who have read the book, you're like, that guy? That little guy?
And I promised you it is not worth $100,000.
Well, because not only for the obvious things that we all know about this cabin, but because it doesn't even have the outhouse.
They took the outhouse away.
What are you saying?
I'm sure what's beneath the outhouse is absolutely still there.
Which I also
But the
want to talk
structure is
about the
gone.
barrel, and we'll get to the barrel. You bought the place from a guy that you called Tony anyway. And you told me a little bit about some folks who read themselves in the book and were like, now wait a minute. Did Tony ever read the book? Have you ever seen this guy?
I do believe that Tony read the book.
Okay.
And that was, as we were sort of talking about in the back, I had never thought that anyone would read the book, and much less the people that are in the book. So I have gotten some text messages from some folks that were like, I don't think I ever really said it like that. And it's like, all right.
Let me tell you exactly how I said it and prove your point about me.
Yeah.
I want to stay really briefly with this idea that you never thought anyone would read this book. A lot of people read the book, Patrick.
Apparently a lot of people read the book, yeah.
Why did you believe so little in yourself? And then why did people love it?
I don't think it was so much believing so little in myself as like that wasn't the point of it for me in a lot of ways. And I think the best way to describe it is when I finished it, and I had to do a couple rounds of edits and things like that. And I remember there was a moment when I sort of did like the final thing, and I remember like sending that email and being like, oh, that's it. It's like done. And I didn't expect to, but I got very emotional. I remember going out in the living room to my wife and being like, like crying a little bit. I was like, oh, it's over. Yeah. Because it felt like at that moment, my sort of relationship with the cabin was kind of done. And I think that that's why I wanted to write it, is that it felt like the sort of like way to kind of end that chapter in my life. And I think in many ways that was the hardest part about writing the book, is that unbelievably, like so much of what happens in here is, 15 or more years ago, and like a lot of fun, and like I would absolutely take a time machine back to that time in my life. And so I think reliving that and like going through old photos and old emails and messages from friends and like asking people to remind me of like, what were you thinking at this time, and what were we all doing, and that kind of thing. This kind of felt like an ode to that period. And so I think that was what was important about writing it, was sort of being fair to and honest of those experiences. And whether people read it or not, I think I didn't really consider it all that much.
Yeah. If you thought at the time that finishing the book would be the end of that chapter, has the fact that people have read it and like are still talking to you about it, has that kept that chapter open?
It's bizarre now that so many people know about it, and like that there's this tiny little crumbling cabin in the woods that like thousands of people intimately know is like a very bizarre thing to me.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that you kind of picked on yourself, that you feel like it's easy to pick on you for buying the cabin, because I'm going to pick on you a little bit.
Great.
So I want to read this, this passage also made me stop and pull out my notes, but for different reasons. This is on page 2. And you write, I worked at random jobs, a bartender, a sandwich delivery person, a sushi busboy. Out of those wanderings and a social science education, I'd landed on a dream of becoming a gonzo journalist, travel writer type person. Think Hunter S. Thompson meets Paul Theroux and Anthony Bourdain. So if I can be mean for a moment, can I ask you a mean question?
Absolutely.
Because I just couldn't help but wonder how you managed to type that sentence without your eyes rolling into the back of your head. Man, everybody wants that.
Everybody wants that. And I think that was what I always liked about writing, is not so much the process of, I know that some people like writing and they're like, oh yeah, and it's like they're playing jazz or something. And for me, writing was always like, it's the thing that I do to sort of pay, like getting to have these experiences that I wouldn't otherwise get to have. So like I was a contributing writer for Seattle Weekly for a few years. And remember, that was really fun because I would get to go on these writing assignments that would be like, oh, someone's, you're learning how to like butcher a pig and make sausage on Vashon Island. And I wouldn't normally get backdoor access to that process if I wasn't writing this article. And so it was like, yes, let's go and find out what that's about. And I'll have to write an article about it. But it always kind of felt like this sort of secret way into experiences that I would not otherwise get to have. And I think that that's what excited me about those guys, is not so much like, oh, they write so well and I love the stories. It was like, God, they get to just go around and like find such weird people and weird stories. And I think that that's really what I kind of was interested in.
I joke, like it was like being back in journalism school. That's like what we all wanted to do. You want to be the cool person who's going out and finding the best stories, and you got to in a lot of ways.
Well, that was what was funny, is that the way that the book kind of came to be in a lot of ways is that a good friend and I, he was also a writer, he's mentioned in the story, Brian, he was working for Mother Jones as a staff writer, and we kept getting these stories that we weren't all that interested in, or editors were sort of doing things to them that seemed to sort of take away from the story. And so writing about the cabin became this thing, and he was writing about a boat that he lived on in Oakland. And so we're like, let's just write about whatever we want and see what happens, for there. So it was like every week we would send pages and pages to each other about those experiences, and that's kind of what kind of ultimately became the book.
Sometimes it becomes a book, sometimes it becomes a book club. Look how that works out. But you go on to talk about, throughout the book, about like needing to appear to have a purpose. And that feels so deeply, again, like millennial. Like, it's not good enough for a lot of people, but like it really wasn't good enough for you. Whereas other folks, it seemed to you at least, felt like okay with settling into that. Like why do you think you were able to like go the extra step and buy the $7,500 cabin and do the thing?
I don't know. I mean, I think that it was just, I think the book makes it sound like maybe it just kind of like happened.
Sure.
But I think that a lot of these things were brewing for years and years and years. Like I went to University of Washington and thought I was going to be a doctor. And that took about a month before I went to a pre-med meeting and, saw the other kids that were in the pre-med meeting, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be a doctor. like these kids want to be a doctor. I was like, I just really like the movie Patch Adams.
Right.
And so then it became like, oh, I'll be a physical therapist. That's basically the same. And then I was eventually I really like this history class. And so I majored in anthropology and history with zero plan. And I think that, so it started back then. I was like, I've got to figure out what I'm doing somehow. And how, I think there's just always that question of like, well, what are you going to do with your life? And I hated that. Because I wanted the answer, obviously, more than anybody. But I think that, this isn't a conventional way to go, I think. And I think it's partly born out of laziness, probably, as a sort of like weird escape. They're like, oh, this will be a good distraction. I can kind of say I'm doing this for the time being. But I didn't think that it would turn into anything.
Sure.
Of course not.
Except hopefully a cabin.
Yeah.
You say laziness, though, but like, this is an incredibly involved project. I guess of all the things you could have gone for, what ultimately drew you to, I'm going to go make this escape?
It just sounded fun.
Yeah, all right.
And I think that maybe that's ultimately what was really happening, is that I felt all this pressure mostly just put on myself to like do something responsible, to find some meaning or purpose in life. And I think what I really wanted is for everyone to stop caring about that and for all of us to just go back to just screwing around. And so I think in a lot of ways what the cabin is, maybe this is a place where screwing around can kind of have a rebirth, and like we can go, like if I can't catch up to everyone Monday through Friday, then what I can at least do is create this place where people come back to this sort of screwing around time that I wish we were all just still in all the time.
Yeah. Thank you for that perfect segue for my next question. Because you confess in the subtitle that, like, at the time, you were a clueless craftsman. You're not so clueless anymore. You learned a lot of things. And it's like you and your friends all didn't really know what you were doing. But you describe it as this safe space for y'all to, like, go figure it out, to go play with giant power tools and shoot BB guns and do like dudes rock stuff and have that place to play around.
Yeah.
I loved how you described that. And why do you think you wanted to approach it from this, like, this is it felt like a playhouse. It felt like building forts in the woods again.
Well, and what's funny about it is that I've seen some reviews online that are like, this is a book about being a bro and total bro stuff.
No.
And what's so funny is that we would stand around and be like, okay, Indy, now be careful. Do you have your safety glasses on? Because be careful. And so we don't. And so you're going to watch him, and then you're going to hold. We were so sweet with each other.
It sounds
and
like
it. There was never any just like, yeah, dog. I mean, if we did that, it was total cosplay of just like, yeah, dude, let's get and none of us had any idea what we were talking
Totally.
about.
And like, to be clear, when I say dudes rock stuff, I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I mean that more in like we have so many conversations about masculinity right now, and it felt like this is the kind of book I would give to a dude who's just like, I don't know how to find myself, and I'd be like, man, go buy a cabin and take your bros out and play with a sawzall. I don't know, that's not a great idea. I'm hearing that play is not the right word, but it felt healthy. Like,
oh, 100%. Yeah, because I think that there are always these things that we're curious about. Like, I don't know of anyone that's never used a power nail gun who wouldn't be interested in doing that once.
It's fun.
But like all of us would be terrified to do it in front of someone. I don't know. I think that we were all just very self-conscious about, again, how we appeared, how we looked, sort of maintaining appearances. And I didn't have like a very masculine group of friends. Like, we wore tight jeans and rode fixed gear bicycles and worked at sandwich shops and went to punk shows. And I think that sort of like aspect of culture was just always kind of like, we were curious about it, but didn't know how, I think, to approach it. And so this became a sort of playground for those sorts of interests.
Why do you think you guys felt like you needed that in particular in life? Like, what was it that it unlocked for you?
I think it just felt so different than normal. I mean, we all lived in Seattle. I think that, like, splitting a huge chunk of firewood was just not a normal part of our routine. And so it felt like using the other half of our brain or something, I think. Life was boiled down to such simple pleasures and routines there, and we were so undistracted and so commonly like forced into activities that were born out of boredom. And like, well, what do we do? And I was like, well, we would just have to make up a game. And so let's get some cans, let's get the BB gun, let's create some sort of an obstacle course, let's see if these berries are edible, like, let's, whatever it is. You just kind of make these things up. And I think that so much of what we found at the cabin, I don't think that we knew we were looking for. But I think that the experience up there kept drawing us back to discover more things that we weren't expecting to enjoy.
It's awesome. And now you do this stuff for work. Like, you went from clueless to like extremely knowledgeable craftsman.
I don't know if I'm extremely knowledgeable.
Okay, knowledgeable enough. Is it still fun?
Yeah. I mean, well, certainly there are times when it's not like I was on the roof today when the lightning started. And I was like, I remember my office job was pretty sick. And so there are certainly days when you're sore and tired, I don't regret this sort of like path that I took ever. And I think, continue to work with people that I really like and it's always like little problems to solve. And I like having a thing that's different at the end of the day that I can look at and be like, that wood was over there when I got here.
And now it's here, doing a thing.
And that won't move for 50 years, I promise.
You hope, Yeah,
I hope.
Well, I wanted to ask about your friends, too, and the people around you, because they seemed so important to this story.
Yeah.
To yours, to the cabins. It's like kind of their story, too, it felt like. My favorite parts of the book were when you guys were working together or shooting BB guns. Like, you have some truly good, cool people in your life. Do you think the cabin would have been nearly as enjoyable or even standing without them?
I don't think I would have done it. Because I think when I first saw it, like the fantasies that started filling my head were immediately like, Matt and I are going to come up here and do this. Brian and I are going to come up here and do this. Indy and I are going to come up here and do this. And we're going to do it. And it was always, everything that I imagined doing was like always with someone else and with groups of friends. I mean, I think the dedication in the book is to the people who stayed at the cabin because they were the whole reason the cabin existed. I don't think it ever would have happened without them.
It was like for them. It was for you to go hang out with them.
100%. I was like, and now they'll have to come up here and they won't be able to be on their phones and they won't be able to study. Right. And for grad school or whatever it is, they'll have to talk to me.
But like, that's what set the book apart from others that are like it, like these people who have gone out and written really cool stories about the wilderness. Like, you have this line toward the end of the book. You say, The self-awareness to know we were in the good moment made that moment all the better. I love that line. You should put it on your next cabin, I think. It's beautiful. Because yours wasn't this like lonesome, quiet, tough guy in the wilderness story. It was so much more, at least it felt to me, like so much more about finding community, building your own community, sharing space with the people that you love. Like, was that what it was for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've wondered about is that it was at this time in a lot of our lives when, again, people were getting married, they were going to grad school, they were moving, they were, going to all these different places. And I think the one kind of constant, at least for me during that time, was that people would always return to the cabin. And it wasn't like we were going up there, every 4 days or something like that, but it was always something that was like, oh, in 3 weeks we'll be up there, for so-and-so's birthday or whatever it was. And it seemed like this sort of constant kind of like refresh or reset, because a lot of the times how the nights would end is having like meaningful conversations about what was going on in our lives and where we were headed. And I think that because of that space and the sort of intimacy of it and how close we all felt there, it became kind of a main, or at least it felt to me like sticking together and kind of always being a part of each other's lives was like a very core motivation for sort of like what we were doing and where we were living and where we were going. And so I don't want to give the cabin credit for it, but I think it was a pivotal part in like keeping that group together during a time in everyone's lives when it's like it's very common for those friends groups to kind of like split apart and disperse.
It's easy to lose contact, but when you've all got your hands on a thing, it's a lot harder to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
There are also so many great characters who come in and out of your life and in and out of the book who apparently texted you their thoughts about the book later. I was like genuinely laughing out loud at the barrel company scene when you go to get
That's great, because I feel like I cannot do justice to this barrel company experience.
It was, I think you did pretty well. Like you captured the confusion.
It's still there. If anyone wants to go buy a barrel and get weirded out.
I love that. Of just like, so the sense, for those who haven't read it, these guys who seem to only make and sell barrels are very confused that you would like to buy a barrel.
Couldn't believe that I'd come in there.
I was a fact checker at a magazine for a little while, and like the entire time I'm reading this scene, I'm just like picturing like 22-year-old me having to call this company to verify the facts in your story, and then just being like, what is the deal with the barrels?
Yeah.
How do you think I think this is a question that's asked of a lot of writers, journalists, all kinds of people who specialize in these kinds of stories, but like, how the heck do you find these people, these situations? Like,
I mean, I think that we all find these people in these situations. And I think that what makes it a thing in my mind is that if I go to a place like that and have an experience, that the first thing that I do is, call and tell a friend about it. And I feel like a lot of the stories in the book that made it in there because it's, some story that I would tell to friends that they would really enjoy and that they would tell to other people and that they would get a kick out of.
Yeah.
And so I think that those, like for any of us, those become our favorite stories to tell, or the ones that people really love. And so I think, something as mundane as buying a barrel kind of becomes like this insane experience that I can't wait. And I think while it was happening, I was like, I can't wait to tell people about what is happening right now.
Yes.
This is so bizarre.
Yes.
Like savoring it. And almost like kind of encouraging it, be like, go find another guy. Go find another guy to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do want to pay with credit card. Let's see how you do that. Let's see what that technology is.
No, that barrel actually isn't good enough. I want that other barrel.
Yeah.
One of the unique situations that you ran into was being cut off from the cabin by this huge mudslide that took out the main road. And like reading that section, I found myself getting this like pit in my stomach and this fear that was going to be the end of the story, even though there was lots of book left, so that didn't really make sense. Did you ever worry that you had like taken your last steps in the cabin, whether you wanted to or not, because of just like a loss of momentum?
I think I worried that there was going to be, knowing that like the neighborhood had a sort of like mixed history and that there were sort of, all different kinds of characters back there. I think what I really worried about is that the people that were living there full time, who were like fighting day in and day out to like get in, you know, like carry groceries in, to do like ATVs or, you know, come over through trails and things. I think I worried that eventually it would become too much for them and that then all of it would just be sort of like left. And because I think that it was kind of like their constant presence that sort of kept things functioning back there. And so I worried that they would give up, and when they gave up, that everything would kind of just like be lost to whoever wants to go back there. But yeah, I didn't think that I would ever let it go as long as it seemed like it was a, you know, viable option.
Yeah. After everything you went through with the cabin, and spoiler alert for those who haven't finished it yet, despite how perfect it was, despite all the great memories and the shoe prints on the boards, on the walls, because you weren't thinking about it, you decided to part with it. And it broke my heart a little. Why did you decide it was time to let it go?
Because at the point that I was at, it was basically done. The lot was super small. You know, it's not much wider than, you know, this room to the beginning of the stairs here. So it wasn't like I could build a bunch of other proper, like, you know, structures on there. And I remember thinking like, oh, I really want to keep, I was so excited by building things and doing carpentry and wanting to like express those skills more and practice on things and do new projects. And I was like, well, I could tear this thing down and rebuild it. But that, I couldn't accept that, as I was like, I can't rip all this apart. It would be too sad. And so I think what I was really also missing is like, man, it was so much fun to like fall in love with this place and with these, you know, community and this environment. And I kind of just wanted to do that again. And what didn't hurt is that it was COVID. And people were paying what at the time was what I thought was an insane price for the cabin. And so it was a little bit of getting out while the getting's good. But it had been a choice that I had kind of made already and just wasn't sure when to pull the trigger.
What are you doing now?
I work as a carpenter full-time now. If anyone needs some work done or a treehouse built, I promise I won't be in charge. I work with very talented people, and they're in charge. So yeah, that's my day job, and we'll be starting work on a new book here in a couple of weeks.
I was just about to ask that because at least 6 people wanted to know, are you still writing? Are you writing another book? So
I am writing another book.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm going to ride my bike across the country, which, as my buddy Dan has pointed out, hasn't someone done that?
People have had cabins, too.
Haven't people done that before? Yes.
A lot of them.
Cabin did well enough that my publisher was like, you know, we'd love for you to write a second book, which I never thought. I really thought that this was sort of the end of my writing career. And so with the idea that I could do another book, it kind of became like, oh, now I kind of get like a free trip. It was like the instant thing that I thought in my mind is like, free trip. And I've always wanted to do some kind of like grand adventure. Like, the house is filled with books of grand adventures of one kind or another. I think I was telling you about, like, you know, even books when I was growing up, like Where the Red Fern Grows, when he goes to get the puppies and he just like puts a pocket knife and an onion in a bindle and like walks into the woods. Yes. Is insane. And I'm like, yes, that sounds so fun. Yeah. And last year, friends and I signed up for the STP, even though none of us were bicyclists.
Seattle to Portland, for those who don't know.
Seattle to Portland bike ride. It's 2 days, 200 miles. And we managed to do it. And in this sort of like sweaty delirium that comes after completing something like that, we were just like, let's bike ride all the time. Let's take trip. Let's do this. This is what all we should be doing. And it never happened. And I started watching these videos of guys doing like Alaska to Patagonia bike rides and becoming sort of obsessed with the idea of something like that. But I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I certainly don't want to ride on a highway. When we trained for the STP, we did so on a rail trail east of Tacoma. And the rail trail was great. It's like, just like the Burt Gilman, it's like 12 feet wide. It goes through all these little charming communities and along the river. And I discovered that there's this thing called the Great American Rail Trail, which is meant to connect all of these rail trails across the country. And so I pitched my publisher. I was like, I'm going to ride the Great American Rail Trail. And he was like, that sounds great, let's do that. And then the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, it's not done. And there are the gaps are substantial. Like the state of Wyoming is a gap. But now I have to do it.
Yeah. You got the advance.
And so that's what I'm going to do. And I leave in like 2.5 weeks, and I am not prepared, and I'm buying too much crap for it.
You're clueless
that
again.
I don't need. I'm terrified, and I'm like, maybe this titanium spork will be the difference.
Not the titanium spork. What's your favorite piece of gear that you've bought so far?
The spork.
It's the spork? Oh my gosh.
It's the spork.
We got to talk about better gear, man. Okay, we started by having you describe that first time you walked into the cabin. I want you to now end things by describing that last time you walked in. Again, like, what did you see? What did you smell? What did you hear? All that jazz.
Blubbering.
Aw.
Yeah, it was not a pretty sight. And I was like taking a knife and I was like carving pieces off of the cabin to take with me. I was like, oh, I want a piece of that wall. I want a piece of that joist. And I also, quite maniacally, took measurements of every single thing in there because my plan was, once I sold it, it was also very quick. I was like, all right, I'm going to sell it. And it sold in like 5 hours, which makes me think I should have asked for more money. But I think then it was like instant regret that I had done it. And so initially I was like, I'm going to replicate this cabin down to the 1/4 of an inch because I couldn't have done it more accurate than that, given my skills at the time.
Sure.
But yeah, I was taking pictures of everything, and it was very sort of documentary. And also, there's a lot more stuff to move out, so I think I was sort of distracted. But certainly, when I walked out of there, it was very hard.
And
Yeah.
what was the one thing that you did take in its wholeness?
I took the wood stove.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, so the wood stove is currently out on the Olympic Peninsula.
It is. You still have it.
Oh, yeah. I have duplicates of it that I've started buying. When I would see the same stove on Facebook Marketplace, I would be like, I need a backup.
Okay, it's like you have a favorite shirt, so you buy it in every color.
Yeah.
You have a favorite wood stove.
I have a favorite wood stove.
I love that so much. Well, Patrick, this has been so fun. I think everyone's enjoyed this, and now it's time for them to get to meet you. So thank you so much. Patrick Hutchison is the author of Cabin, Off-the-Grid Adventures with the Clueless Craftsman. Thank you. I spoke to Patrick for a KUOW Book Club live event in partnership with the Seattle Public Library on July 16th. You can join the KUOW Book Club at kuow.org/books. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Meet Me Here. Meet Me Here is produced by KUOW, a proud member of the NPR network. It's hosted by me, Katie Campbell, Dyer Oxley, and Jeannie Yandel. And it's produced by Brandy Fullwood, Kyle Norris, and Matt Martin. Our editor is Phyllis Fletcher. You can find more and support the show at kuow.org/meet. I'm Katie Campbell, and I'll meet y'all back here for our next regularly scheduled episode on Wednesday.
With political tensions at a new peak, what does it take to stay strong, engaged, and grounded in these dangerously divided times? I'm Monica Guzman, host of A Braver Way. Join me and my guests from across the political spectrum. We'll share tools, insights, and messy, real-life stories to help you meet this moment without losing heart. Listen to A Braver Way on the KUOW app or wherever you get podcasts.